So this super weird, out-of-touch guy, Mark Dara, made a video complaining about gamers. Mark Dara, an ex-dev from BioWare.
Oh,
and
man.
What's even more hilarious is how he's getting all upset in the comments of that video.
He's so mad because I reacted to his video and I disagreed with parts of his video. I didn't even disagree with the entirety of his video. I disagreed with part of it.
He's like rage responding to people. It's great entertainment for us. First, a little more info on Mark Dara. So yeah, once again, this guy is an ex-dev for BioWare, although apparently he was brought back to do some consulting on Veilguard, what some people are saying. If that's true, that's hilarious. What we do know, however, is that he was at the very least attempting to prop up and defend Veilguard, for example, rock, paper.
What I see in Veilguard is a game that finally bridges the gap. It bridges the gap between the employees and the unemployment line.
For Shotgun here as a headline, BioWare's Mark Dara thinks Veilguard's the first Dragon Age where the combat's actually fun. What I see in Veilguard is a game that finally bridges the gap. Oh, and you know what? Here's some more information on the whole Veilguard consulting thing. Games Radar had wrote, former Dragon Age boss now consulting on the Veilguard.
Of course you're getting mad and you're trying to defend this. So I forgot all about this. I didn't even know this. Maybe I knew it. I didn't really take it seriously or didn't pay attention to it. So this guy basically was telling them that this was a good idea. And now that it's a bad idea, now he's trying to guilt trip his audience into thinking that it's good that they released the game and it's bad that people are happy that the studio failed. Oh, God.
No way. Says the RPG really is the best Dragon Age game that I've ever played. Yeah, so that's the sort of dude we're talking about. Subtext reading.
For sure.
Mark Dara has high praise for BioWare's latest. And apparently this dude is a BioWare veteran. How can this dude just like tarnish BioWare's legacy like this? No. Oh, it's the best Dragon Age game ever. It's so great. To BioWare's credit, they did used to make good games. The frick is this guy doing?
It was a long time ago.
Oh, Veilguard's the best EA game. BioWare's better than ever. Dudes like this are just complete sellouts. Trying to sell out to the modern...
I feel like he was a consultant and he's just saying the things so it makes him look good. That's really the reason why.
It's corpos out there and all that. Yeah, it's pathetic. So that takes us to the current news with this guy.
Doesn't he look like Jake Paul in 20 years?
PC Gamer making this tweet that says,
it's
BioWare
actually
veteran
crazy.
Calls out the cruelty of fans celebrating layoffs, saying... You are crossing a line, and you're probably attacking the wrong person
50
anyway.
years.
The source for this quote is, as mentioned, a video he made, which is on his channel, and we're going to take a look at a portion of that video. I've already watched the full thing twice myself, and I'm just going to summarize the great majority of the video, which is simply that the middle part of the video, he's essentially just making excuses for bad game devs, and the latter part of the video, he's essentially trying to dictate who gamers are.
I love how, like, this is like what I think is so fucking annoying. Is that these people, they create these, they create this apparatus where nothing they do can ever be wrong because there's so many people that are responsible for each individual thing that accountability is displaced between so many sources that there can never be any fault by anybody. It's so exhausting.
Allowed to criticize and who they're not allowed to criticize. There's also a prevalent recurring theme in his video, which is he doesn't actually use the word criticize. He doesn't want to admit that gamers have fair critiques for these corporations and these devs. No, instead he phrases it specifically as gamers attacking and complaining. And I don't think that's...
It's also like, I mean, everybody agrees. Like, let's just get this out of the way. Everybody agrees that if you don't like a voice actor for a certain game or whatever, if you're making personal attacks to them and you're making personal threats, like everybody agrees this is bad. No, but there's no like hidden agenda here of people that think this is a good thing. It's not real. You're fighting. You're jousting with windmills here. You're fighting ghosts. Like, yeah, there's like 5 people on Twitter that think this, but it's not the majority of people. 99% of people don't think this.
I think there's like one of two things going on here. Either he's intentionally phrasing it that way, or he's subconsciously phrasing it that way. Either thing leading to the conclusion that he clearly doesn't think gamers are really valid to criticize these corpos, and he's just trying to play cover for them. But yeah, that's not going well because gamers are seeing right through his nonsense and calling him out, which, as mentioned, he's getting upset about in his own comment section. All that said, now I'm going to play a portion of his video.
So the reason why he's getting defensive in his comment section is because I reacted to his video and I watched it. That's the reason why he's getting defensive, because he wasn't doing that previously.
Did you read the title? Did it say something like your $70 doesn't buy you cruelty?
Oh.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. The fact that you bought a game that you didn't like doesn't give you the right to be cruel or unkind to the people that developed that game. Now, I'm going to be clear about something.
Well, the reason why it doesn't give you the right is because you already had it. Everybody has the right to say whatever the fuck they want. It's not against the law. You could have said that anyway.
I'm not saying that you have to like the thing you bought. I'm not saying even that you aren't allowed to complain about the thing you bought.
Yeah.
You can have whatever opinion that...
You're right, not in Germany.
Even if that opinion is stupid and wrong, you are entitled to that opinion. And to some degree, you're entitled to express that opinion to the corporation, to the video game studio that created this game that you bought. You paid 70 of your own dollars for this game, and it disappointed you. And you're angry about that. That is fine. You are entitled to be angry about it. And you're entitled to express that anger in certain channels. If you are mad at that Ubisoft game, be mad at Ubisoft. Express your anger to Ubisoft or to the studio that made the game. But you cross a line when you start being cruel about it. So why am I saying you don't get to be cruel because you...
Why are you not defining what that word means? You're not defining the word. The problem is, like, you're using an emotionally charged word without creating a distinction, because there's a lot of people that view constructive criticism, and cruelty that are all on the spectrum. So, like, I think that you can easily see personal attacks, insults at a person's appearance, stuff like that. This is obviously all bad, right? But where does that line get drawn? Well, you're not creating the line, and so how can anybody know what you mean?
Spent $70. Let's walk through it. One,
he's creating rhetoric.
You shouldn't be cruel at all. What are you doing? It's a video game. You don't need to go out of your way to cause harm to other people because of a video game that you don't like.
Okay, so yeah, you know, cruel. He goes off about being cruel and never really defines what he means by.
So does he think that, like, if so somebody makes a video game that's not fun, and then a player beats up the developer in real life, how many people do you think really support that? Basically fucking nobody. Nobody supports it. Like, this is not real. Like, it's total
cruel. Chances are that's something he would use to fit his own meaning whenever it's convenient for him to defend corpos. And okay, here's a question, bruh. Why do these giant corporations get to be cruel to gamers? Trying to take our money, charge us $70 for their AAA slop.
Yeah, I would say that's a good argument. Yeah, I think it's a little bit cruel when you make a video game and you charge $70 for it and it's bad.
Sometimes promising features that are not even there, and releasing games that are far too buggy than they should be at release. Sometimes essentially using players as their own beta testers without properly disclosing that that's even what they're doing. It's an extremely shady and corrupt industry. You don't see this guy advocating for gamers to get refunds on these slop games. No, instead he's just trying to dictate how gamers are allowed to respond when these corporations try and swindle people out of their money. And of course I understand that they're not literally forcing someone to buy their game. They don't, like, threaten them to buy the game or else. But as mentioned, a lot of the time these corporations are very dishonest in how they're presenting their game, as if it's a complete product, when a lot of the time these AAA games really aren't.
If you feel like you need to focus it down onto an actual human being, I mean, that's really sad. I'm sorry. That's very sad. And hopefully you can grow beyond that. But I will give you a couple of outlets. I
think that it makes sense when you focus on a human being whenever a specific person is saying things that are problematic, like that avowed art director, for example. Like, that makes sense. Now, whenever you're looking at harassing a voice actor for some character because you don't like what the character's doing in the game, like, this is mental institution behavior, absolutely. But that's not the majority, and it's actually a small minority. This guy's an example of a concern troll? No, what he's doing is he's trying to... So he put his weight behind a game that was received very badly, and now he's trying to play defense for it because he was aligned with it, and it makes him look bad. That's what's really happening here. That's what I think is happening here.
Need to complain at a human being. I'm going to say you don't get to go lower than the first person in the credits.
Yes, the complaining police over here. Oh, you don't get to do this. You can only do that. And an important thing to take note of is how he's not providing any examples. Like, what is he even specifically talking about here? I don't generally see gamers going after, like, specific people who worked on a game unless those people went out of their way to attack gamers first. For example,
Fucking exactly. Yeah, nobody's going and just like finding random devs and doing that. And if they are, they're assholes and they're pieces of shit.
Have seen devs at certain companies, certain devs, literally making inflammatory statements that target gamers with hostility, in which case, obviously, the gamers that see that may very well respond to it, and they're allowed to do that. Or in other circumstances, when we've seen devs, for example, some of the Veilguard devs, who very obviously put in like self-insert slop into the game, which we also directly see negatively impacted the game. Yeah, people are allowed to criticize those choices and the people who made them. Just because you're a game dev doesn't mean you're free from criticism. And you can't criticize. You can only criticize the first name in the credits.
Be a human being, have some empathy, and stop being cruel. Stop throwing a party because a bunch of people lost their jobs. Because you don't know the circumstances that resulted in the thing that you're mad at. People deserve some grace. People deserve some empathy from you. And if you can't provide that, then stay off the internet completely.
Yeah, the lack of self-awareness with this guy, man, is pretty astonishing.
It's insane.
Telling us to stay off the internet, that's what he should be doing, really. Like, he's just making terrible points and making himself look like a fool. And again, like I mentioned multiple times, it only gets worse in his own comment section. Let me know what you think about that stuff. Now, on to the comments. A top comment reads, "A simple bill of $70 gives me the right to critique a product." And Mark responds with this really weird comment that says, "Watch the video, dislike something, express that dislike to the studio, but why are you crawling into someone's personal social media feed? If you need a human, look at the first few names in the credits." We can then see a user questioning how Mark knows that person is even doing it.
How do you even know that the first few names in the credits are the ones that are responsible either? In a lot of cases, the game director is even somebody who's beholden, like, they're not at the top of the company either. Like, there's probably 3 people that are above, or probably 2 people that are above them. There's the CEO, and then there's the board of directors, if it's a publicly traded company, that are really telling the CEO what to do. So that doesn't even make sense.
What he's accusing him of, to which someone else points out that he really doesn't.
Yeah.
As it turns out, that comment that Mark left is one that he's been copy-pasting all over the comment section. I find this particularly amusing because he tries to say to act like a human being in his video, but he comes off like some kind of robot. Like, it comes off very fake. And then he's just copy-pasting.
Of course it's a robot because he's saying the same thing like a robot would.
Slop in the comment section. I think this guy should take his own advice. Like, bro, try and act like a human instead of a bot. Oh, look, here's a comment he left that's actually not just a copy paste. This user says, "You have never once called out your colleagues for their cruelty." And Mark,
exactly. See, this is why people don't believe this, and this is why they hate people like this. Is because, like, you can have these different these different developers and these people that work in the games industry that constantly, non-fucking stop, make negative comments, derogatory comments towards either content creators, gamers as a whole, or groups of people, and they never get called out by their coworkers or even by other people in the industry. And this is a massive issue. Like, for example, in streaming, if somebody says something bad, a lot of people will call it out and say, hey, this is bad. In a lot of other industries, it's the exact same thing. But the problem is that if you don't hold your own people accountable, then how can you expect to hold other people accountable? It's not fair. So how can anybody respect this mindset if you're not even doing it yourself?
Mark says, nope. Yeah,
simple.
it's not a copy paste, but it's still definitely not helping his case.
Yep.
This user says, studios attack the gamers. Gamers retaliate. Studios shocked Pikachu face. And Mark Dara
Control C, Control V.
is back with his copy paste nonsense. We can see another example of that right here, where this person says, quote unquote, don't ask questions, just consume product and wait for next product. And there's Mark's typical copy paste response. There's plenty more examples of him doing.
Well, this is the exact issue he's kind of saying, is that people are criticizing his approach to the video, and they're talking about a meta level issue with his video, and he's only talking about what the video is talking about and trying to reassert the same point of view. So I think this is actually a really good example of how this happens.
Not yet.
All this goes back to what I said earlier about how I don't think this guy genuinely does care about the industry. He seems intent on defending certain people.
Well, he cares about people in the industry. Like, he probably has friends or people that he's, close with or something like that, and he cares about them, and so he's trying to defend them, and he's trying to defend retroactively his own bad decisions. That's what's going on.
Because even just taking a look at his video and his actions in the comment section, he's only giving gamers even more reasons to despise the AAA industry.
Just make it gay.
Lastly, let's take a look at this exchange where a user says, I guess devs can be cruel for years, and the second it happens back to them, the gamers are the bad guys, and the devs are all of a sudden the victim. Right. Mark says, ideally we would see decorum from everyone, but people point out how he doesn't seem to really stand by that at all.
Yeah, because you're not calling them out. Whenever you only call out one group of people, then everybody thinks that you're biased.
The next response saying, that was of no priority to you in this video. And indeed, he never mentioned that at all. Instead, he was trying to frame all the critiques from gamers as attacks and unjust complaining, and mentioning nothing of the awful behavior we've seen from numerous devs in the industry. The next response reads, people didn't when it was one-sided for the last decade. Too late to do a 180 and say people should now, when the other side has the upper hand. Western AAA games have been terrible for value for the longest time, and there's no reason to buy them over indie or Eastern developed games. And then this response says, so where's your video about game dev cruelty, Mark? Where's your article about that? What a snake. It's much more cruel to be an executive producer who pushes for or allows all the elements that were guaranteed to get everyone working under you laid off. Hey, that's kind of...
This is actually a really good point. It's the selfishness of empathy and the selfishness of indulgence at a leadership level. And it's something that needs to be discussed a lot more. And I wish it was, but unfortunately it's not. So one of the things that happens a lot is that a lot of people that are in leadership roles, what they end up doing is they defend and they allow things that are problematic because they think that it's for the better good, right? They're doing the right thing. And sometimes when you do the right thing, you end up betraying the people that put their confidence in you in the first place. And so I see a lot of cases where people who have a leadership position put their own morals and their own virtue signaling ahead of the best interests of the people that have put their trust in them. And I think it's one of the biggest types of betrayals that a person in a leadership position can have. And I understand that, like, this is sometimes a trolley problem, but a good leader knows which lever to pull. And that's it. And sometimes you have to pull a lever. And the issue is that a lot of people are unwilling to do that, and their unwillingness to do that makes them weak leaders.
The user says, the team's well-being was your responsibility as far as game production goes. Unless you're telling me that EA was pushing all those undesirable elements, and you'd like to tell us that.
He never responded.
But you probably weren't even one to rein your more belligerent coworkers in, let alone keep their sales-killing agendas out of the product. Once again, let me know what you think about all of this stuff in the comments here. And if you enjoyed my coverage, please consider liking and or subscribing. Appreciate ya. Have a great weekend ahead, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yep. I'm so glad to see this happen. I'm so glad to see people calling this out. And so, like, yeah, is watching so much negative content lately changed you? I feel like I'm not really watching a lot of negative content. Yeah, I don't really think that's the case, actually. I feel like I've watched a lot of positive content. We've done a lot of positive things. And, yeah, I mean, you're going to have some people that are going to be negative, but overall, it's fine.